Hi, my name is Lisa. I'm an engineer here at EcoPoxy. Today we're going to be using UVPoxy to clear coat a serving tray. Why don't we get started? UVPoxy uses a 1-to-1 mix ratio. I'm going to start by pouring in the resin followed by the hardener. So today we've mixed approximately 400 milliliters of UVPoxy. That should be more than enough to coat our tray, but also allow some extra epoxy to run over the edges. We want to make sure that we don't miss any spots, and it's a lot better to have too much than not enough during your project. I'm going to mix for 2 to 3 minutes, and as I begin to mix, I'm going to watch for the epoxy to go cloudy, and then eventually it will become clear. So right now we can see a lot of streaks and cloudiness, and that will go away once the epoxy is fully mixed. We want to stir deliberately, but not aggressively. Stirring too aggressively can introduce a lot of bubbles into the epoxy, which can result in bubbles in your project. We also want to scrape the sides of the cup and get right into the corners of the bottom of the cup. Any unmixed resin that's left in the cup that ends up on your project could result in sticky spots, uncured spots. We want to avoid that. As we're stirring, we also want to occasionally scrape off the stir stick to make sure that we don't have any unmixed hardener or resin stuck to the stick. So as you can see, as we're mixing the UVPoxy, it's becoming more clear and there are less streaks. You can also see that there are a fair amount of air bubbles within the UVPoxy because it's so thick. The thickness of UVPoxy is very beneficial for coating, but you do end up with air bubbles and trap no matter how carefully you stir. That being said, when we get to the end of our project, we're going to be torching the coating anyway to remove the air bubbles, so we can deal with that later. So now that we've mixed our UVPoxy, we're going ahead with our clear coat. So we'll start by pouring some of our epoxy in the center of the project. We've got plastic sheeting on the table to protect the surface. I'm going to use EcoPoxy's notch spreader to spread the UVPoxy across the surface. So our first step is going to be spreading out the UVPoxy across the surface just to get the surface wet out. And we're going to use the 3/16 edge to do that. We'll start in the center, and in a star pattern, we'll just move the UVPoxy across the surface. We're not worried about it being even at the moment. We just want the surface to be wet out. And we allow the UVPoxy to spill over the edges. All right. With the surface fully wet out, we're now going to even out the coating of UVPoxy. So again, in this case, I'll use the 3/16 inch notches. I'm going to start in one corner and move slowly across the surface, allowing the epoxy to flow over the edge. And then at the end, turning, going back to the other side. You'll see a small wave of UVPoxy in front of the spreader, and we should see the notch marks on the surface. Then we'll repeat that step in the opposite direction, just moving slowly back and forth across the surface. UVPoxy is self-leveling, so it will fill any low spots on your project. So it is important to have a very flat surface that's level to work on. Depending on your working conditions, you'll have about 30 to 40 minutes before your UVPoxy starts to gel. Now that we've coated the surface, we're going to check around the edges just to make sure that we don't have any bare spots that are left on the sides or the corners. And you can touch those up with a stir stick or with a craft stick or even just your fingers as long as you're wearing gloves. And to get those edges, you can just take some of the UVPoxy that has dripped onto your surface. Now that we've finished our coating, we're going to use a torch to pop any of the bubbles that are remaining on the surface. With the torch, we want to do smooth, sweeping passes, just being careful not to stay in any location for too long. You can actually burn the surface of the resin if you're not careful. So it's just important to keep moving smoothly back and forth. And you can see the bubbles popping as we go. It's good practice to come back to your project 5 to 10 minutes after you've done your first pass with the torch to check for more bubbles, assuming that you have the working time left. So now that we've finished our clear coat and we've popped all of our bubbles with the torch, we're going to leave our project to cure. After about 10 hours, it should be set to touch, which means that any dust that falls on the surface shouldn't adhere to it, and everything will be no longer tacky. However, you don't really want to handle your project until at least 24 hours after you've poured, just to make sure that it's hard enough to manage any handling as you move it around or as you begin any finishing work. The project should be fully cured by 48 hours and have full mechanical properties. Once your project is cured, you can expect a high-gloss, water-clear finish that adds beautiful depth to your project. We hope you found this video useful, and we'd love to see what you create with UVPoxy. Take care, and we'll see you next time.